Welcome to the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux.
And I'm excited once again for this conversation that we're getting ready to have. At least this time you are aware of what we'll be talking about. so I know in like the past, I kind of just like spring these topics on you just to kind of get your real-time responses. But we actually did talk a little bit this time about what we'll be discussing today. So let's jump right into it if you're cool with that.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So I came across, and I don't necessarily have a quote for the week, but I came across this post that I saw on Instagram. Y'all be scrolling through a lot of these entrepreneur pages on Instagram. And this quote said, "Personal trainers can't force you to eat healthier. Financial advisors can't increase your income for you. Self-help authors can't force you to implement good habits. At some point, you have to take initiative and save yourself." And that's what I want to really talk about today is like taking that initiative in whatever sense it might be. It could be like in your business. If you are an entrepreneur, it could be taking initiative in your 9 to 5, doing things to kind of get yourself noticed or to try to get yourself promoted in certain aspects. Or it could be taking initiatives in like your personal life. And then we'll kind of switch the gears a little bit and start looking at consistency once you are in that business or you are getting to like a certain level that you want to get to. So let me toss it over to you, man. What's your thoughts?
Whenever you start off any business, right, or any type of venture, first thing you want to do is get all the knowledge or all the information that you can about the subject, right? Mm-hmm. And then in your head, you plan it out like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But what happens is oftentimes we never get started because we're scared, right? And we never take that initiative because of that. And it's like, we got all the information we need. But for some reason, as entrepreneurs or, that beginning stage of being an entrepreneur is we just want every moment to be perfect before we actually take that initiative. So I think that in order for anything to happen, you have to kind of put yourself out there first.
See, that's where I was going to go, because as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, man, I wonder if he's going to hit on this topic. And like you said, like sometimes like people might be scared to start the business, but then you came back and said sometimes they might not be scared. They just want everything to be perfect. And I think that's like a huge hindrance for a lot of people. Like you want everything to be 100% the finished product before you even start. And like you said, that can kind of keep you stuck in limbo instead of actually just putting yourself out there.
Yeah. What I've noticed too, man, and I'm victim of this too, like I do this as well, is oftentimes we're on social media, right? And then we see somebody that's in our same exact market, right? And we see them as the finished product and we compare ourselves to them, like, man, they got this, they got that. I need to be here before I'm able to launch, or I need to be here before I can even start my business. But you never even get started because you're like, well, if I don't have what they got, then I'm not doing something right. When the whole objective to the game is just get started. Take the initiative to just put yourself out there.
Let me throw this out there for you. What would be an example, I guess, like in either when you were in a corporate setting or even in your job as a realtor or, as a other entrepreneurship venture or entrepreneurial ventures that you've had? Like, what are some examples of you taking the initiative, I guess?
Probably just like when I was in the corporate field, it was just trying to move up, right? And in your head, like I know all the processes to do my job well. I know all of these, technical terms. I know all of the ins and outs of the company, how to do my job. Like, everything. But I think the scary part about it is actually doing it. But when I finally put myself out there, bro, like I was like, you know what? If I fail, I fail. And I finally put myself out there, and I got noticed by my superiors, and got promoted and stuff like that. But in the corporate field, man, people go through it all the time, where they want a promotion for a job, they want all of these things, they're highly qualified, but they never take the initiative to even see if they're able to even get that job. Yeah,
I agree. I think, like, even for myself, when I first started teaching, like my first semester, I was signing on to like do any and everything. If my boss was like, hey, can you serve on this committee? Yeah, I'll do it. Can you do this? Yeah, I'll do it. And part of the reason for doing that was to become more knowledgeable about the ins and outs, because I think the more knowledgeable you are about something, the more valuable you are, and the more of an asset you become to your department or your company or whatever. So for me, it's always about like soaking up knowledge that I can use to kind of further, my career. Or you might be doing something at your job that might not serve or benefit you like today, but like 2 years from now, that might be something that you're going to kind of, call back on, and, gives you like that one up in a sense.
Yeah, I think too, though, is, how you and I always talk about the analysis paralysis, right? I think that's where it starts at too, though. And because oftentimes what happens is people often talk themselves out of getting started. So, and that's where the analysis paralysis come in, where they're talking themselves out of it. Well, maybe I ain't got this. Maybe I'm not qualified for this. Or maybe I'm not, as smart or as, whatever excuse you give yourself on why not to get started. But I think that's where it starts at, right? They're talking themselves out of it. So they never get started. They never take that initiative to move up in life. So it's just, first off, trying to figure out how to get yourself out of that mindset.
Right. Now, I think it's a little bit, so for you, when you became a realtor, and when we talk about initiative, a lot of times it's also involving like this self-management. And I remember saying, I think we had a conversation about this on one of the previous episodes, where it's like, when you're an entrepreneur, you pretty much don't got nobody telling you what to do. So taking the initiative takes on a whole nother, aspect when you're an entrepreneur. So since you've done both sides, like what has been like your experience between taking the initiative in the corporate setting versus taking initiative as a full-time entrepreneur?
The biggest difference is when you're in a corporate setting, right, there's only a couple of things that you do when it comes to taking initiative, right? Moving up in your company, taking initiative, or, trying to get seen by your boss or whatever. That's those are mostly the lines that you kind of cross when taking initiative, right? But when you're in a business for yourself, every day is taking initiative, right? Because it's a matter of putting yourself out there all the time, at every cost, every situation. You got to put yourself out there. So if you're not, if you don't have that in you to to keep putting yourself out there day in and day out, regardless of the result, then sometime entrepreneur isn't for everybody, because that's what it takes. And that's what I've been doing, right? Whether it's cold calling, right? 'Cause I do a lot of cold calling just to get new clients. And I'm constantly taking the initiative to put myself out there, to study get rejected, to study get cursed out. But in my head, there's a bigger goal in play. I'm study taking the initiative to, promote myself on Instagram. I'm study taking the initiative to, be in front of the camera like you and I. I'm study taking initiative in everything that I do at every single stage of my business.
Right. Okay. And I think that makes sense, because what you said, like, I think as being an entrepreneur, it's just consistently just being in that mindset of always taking the initiative in whatever aspect your business is requiring you to. Because I think when we think about initiative, it's really, all about doing things without being told. At least that's how I see it, like in the corporate setting.
Well, so for you with the photography and the real estate, how was it for you to even put yourself out there? Because first off, this was something way out of your comfort zone, you know what I'm saying? Like something that you wasn't doing at first. What made you put yourself out there and take the initiative?
I mean, for that, it really goes back to things that you're kind of passionate about. And real estate has always been something that I've been interested in, just because, my god brother, he's a real estate appraiser. So I used to work with him and doing the appraisal reports, and then going with him as he was doing his inspections. And then even with growing up, my godfather, he worked on rehabbing properties. So I remember going with him on the weekends and, doing like little work, and paid $1 a day, which, in retrospect, I think he owed me some coins. But, you start seeing those things, and you see people thriving in this industry. And even, just talking with you see people making moves in it. Then that kind of gives you the, what's the word I'm looking for? It lets you know that it can be done. for the most part.
Absolutely.
It's not unrealistic. And I think that's what it is, like, just having people around you that can kind of level your expectations. I remember early on when you were telling me about the real estate field, you was like, it's not tough, but it's also not sweet. Like, you're not going to just be able to just like, just jump in there. You got to put the work in, but as long as you're willing to put the work in, then you can do it. And that's how it's always been for me. So then knowing that information in the back of my mind, it makes it a little bit easier to say, okay, I'm going to pursue this. This is how I'm going to do it. But at the back of my mind, I'm always knowing that I got people that I can rely on to also mentor me along the way, or, serve as resources for me. Because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to do anything like alone. Like, you don't want to be out there struggling. So it's, helpful to have people that you can reach out to. So I think that helped me to take the initiative and, signing up for the classes, seeking out a brokerage and things like that.
I think it was the same thing for me when I started photography, man. Was putting myself out there and taking the initiative, was just seeing everything that you were doing, right?
Okay.
And you kind of did give me that motivation to put myself out there. It's like I seen what you were doing. I was like, man, I like that, man. But what you actually gave me the confidence to put myself out there, because of how easy you made that transition, and you know what I'm saying, you let me know, like, yo, this is what you should do, this is what you should look out for. So it was almost a no-brainer for me on my end for that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's all about, taking the information that others who have been down that path, they leave little breadcrumbs to kind of help you along the way. And that's what a lot of people have done for me, like in every aspect of my career, whether it's in higher education, the photography, like, because I know a few photographers that, I used to glean from, when I first started. And then even like in the photo booth business, it's such a thriving online community, to the point where you kind of like don't have any excuses really, to not be where you're supposed to be. And even like with the real estate. And then more importantly too, I think what helps with the initiatives is that I'm not afraid to fail at things. This current project that I'm undertaking, like, I went in with certain expectations, like, okay, this is how much this is going to cost. It should take about this amount of time. But then when you get in it and you see that all of that's just out the window. But what I enjoy is I enjoy the process. And I think when you enjoy the process, the hustle, the grind, that helps you to be willing to take those chances and put yourself out there, because you're not afraid of like failing potentially, because you know that failing doesn't mean the end all be all. The failure is just going to be the lessons that you can learn. So on that next project, I'll be a little bit more, knowledgeable.
Absolutely. You know what? And this is a little bit off topic, man. But I think the beautiful part about being an entrepreneur, is that journey, right? Yeah. It's like the journey to becoming, because it's not really about the money, right? Like real entrepreneurship, it's not really about the money. It's about the journey of creating something that hasn't never been, Yeah. And I think that's what all entrepreneurs share. And you just said it. It was like the learning lessons, stuff that you didn't know, the journey, of kind of building something. So, man, I think it's a beautiful thing.
With entrepreneurship, and I'm really seeing this in this project that I'm working on. I shared it to my Instagram story a little bit, and I'll let our viewers in and listeners in. So I've been rehabbing a house for like the past 2 months, it seems like. And when I got the property, it was in you've seen it. Like, it wasn't in good condition at all. So when I went into it, it's like, okay, these are all the things that need to be done. So you have a vision for what this can turn into when you put the work into it. And I think that's the exact same way entrepreneurship is. You have a business idea, you have a vision of what it can be, but you got to put that work in. And then as you start to put the work in and you start to see that transformation, then that's what's going to keep you going. Like with the property, like we put a lot of work in and it looks totally different. Now that's going to even motivate me even further to just keep working harder. And then it's going to be when the next project comes along, okay, it can't be as bad as this last one, So now,
Right,
you know,
no.
you just repeating that process over and over again. And that's what entrepreneurship is. Like you said, real entrepreneurs aren't chasing the bag. They're chasing the freedom that comes along with, like, money does give you that financial freedom, but it's also those challenges, trying to solve these problems. I think oftentimes, there's a lot of information out there on how we can do things, but a lot of times people just store that information up instead of, being able to, or knowing how to apply it. Information without knowing how to apply it to your certain circumstances is kind of useless. But as you go through these journeys, as we talked about, like with entrepreneurship, that information turns into wisdom that you can use, for yourself with future endeavors, but then also to kind of guide other people who are coming behind you. So, like you said, man, entrepreneurship is the greatest thing, just because it is that journey. And I remember Jarnay said it, man, you gotta be in love with the grind. You gotta like to be in the weeds. And I mean, that's where I'm at with it.
You know what? I listened to this guy named Inky Johnson, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, right?
You mentioned him before.
I always mention him, man, because he says some real profound stuff, man. And he mentioned that you have to be in love with the journey. You cannot be in love with anything outside of the journey, because then, or else you'll fail, right? And I believe that 100%. Do you believe that people who are not in love with the journey, right, but they're in love with like money or whatever, they'll never reach their peak?
I think it makes it harder for them too. Like, I mean, you can just luck up and just, reach, a peak and, level up. But I think if you're not in love with the journey, it makes it a lot easier for you to become distracted or get off that path. Because if you're not in love with the journey or the grind, when things start getting tough, you might, all right, maybe this isn't for me. But if you're in love with the grind, you're like, okay, I just got to push through this. That's what the difference is. And I think that's what really separates, people who do be like full-time entrepreneurs to people who start a business and then, that business might just fade away, or they stop putting, their time and effort into it. So I believe 100% with you. Like, you gotta enjoy the grind. And that's what's going to get you through those tough times where the money might not be coming in the way that you want it to. You might have to be putting more hours than you want to. You might not be getting the accolades or the praise that you think you deserve, because we've all been there.
Hold on. You said something, man, dude. And I think that's what it is, right? When you start a business or entrepreneurship, right, everybody wants the accolades and everybody wants the praise, right? And if it doesn't come, that is literally one of the reasons why most people stop the business.
Yeah.
Right? Their peers are like, they're not noticing this, they're not retweeting, they're not sharing, they're not commenting, they're not getting what they want out of it immediately, right? Like, I start the business, if I start one tomorrow, you want everybody to be like, yo, go Glenn, but that's just not the way it happens.
Not at all.
And people get so discouraged because of that. Oh man,
it's like a lot of people want that social media recognition. You post something and, oh man, congratulations, I see you out here, bro, you doing your thing, this, that, and the other. But a lot of times it takes a while for that stuff to come. But I think everybody starts off with like this idea in their head that the business or the service that they're getting ready to provide is like the best thing since sliced bread. And it takes a while for you to be able to build the product and the service to the point where the people that you're selling that to see it the way that you see it. And until you get to that point, that recognition is not going to be there the way that you want. But you can't be discouraged by temporary shortfalls. And I think that's where a lot of people get off of that track or off that journey to becoming like a full-time entrepreneur, because, like you mentioned, they're not getting that recognition from the jump.
Yeah. And I think, and what I was going to add was, when people post a business, right, and people don't understand, like, your business is going to go through so many different changes before it ends up at its end result. So, you putting out a business, you want all these accolades or whatever, you have no idea. Your business might change 45 times over before it actually becomes what it is.
Yeah.
And I think you got to leave yourself that room to grow. You got to leave yourself room to, to like you say, those shout outs that you want, they're gonna come.
Eventually,
But it might not come in this season. Yeah, right, eventually. But it might just not come in this season. But it's gonna come though.
Your first iteration of your business is not going to be the last one. I mean,
Never.
I can count at least 10 different things that I've changed in my business since I first started. And I'm just talking like my photography one. But like even with you, like we might start off in an area, but then you start to gravitate towards an area that you specialize in. And you won't really know that until you're actually in the business. You might not know that, like, just use photography for instance. You might not know that you don't like doing newborn photo shoots until you get in front of a crying baby and you can't get them to, sit still and be quiet. That happened to me. Like, somebody was like, yo, can you do some pictures for my baby? It's like, okay, I can do it. And I did not like it. I'm crossing that off the list. I'm not offering that service anymore. Like you mentioned, we got to leave ourselves room for growth in our business, because in order to be the best version of our business, you got to go through the experiences. Yeah, like, you don't know what the best thing for you is if you haven't been through stuff. At least that's my personal opinion.
Can we get a mic drop from John, man? Because he just been dropping mics all day, man. Oh,
well, see,
man.
I like this conversation, and this is totally unscripted. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how we even stumbled upon this conversation, but yeah, I think that's what it is. And I mean, you just got to really just stick on the journey, and
absolutely,
you understand that the path. I think you say it all the time. The path's not linear, to get to wherever your peak is. Let me throw this question out to you, and just to get your real time, honest opinion. And don't cap for the guests.
All right,
has there ever been any moment, I guess, in either like your real estate business or your photography business, whatever, where you did want to just like kind of give up and get off the journey?
Hell yeah! What was it? What was it, dude? I think it was probably like this year, bro. Like, as much success as I think I've had, dude, it is exhausting. And it's times that I was like, man, dude, like, do I really want to do this? Like, it was times I would be like, man, bro, like, I'm okay with just working a 9 to 5. Like, let me just clock in. Let me just go to work, man. Do what I'm told. Get that consistent check, because some days you don't eat, bro. So it's like, for me, it's like, man, when is my next check coming? But when it comes, you be like, oh yeah, that felt good. But dude, like every day I be like, man, is this for me? And then I kind of look around and see what I build, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can't go back.
It's like, I kind of equate entrepreneurship to working out, like you wake up in the morning, like you don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to get on the treadmill. I don't want to go to the gym. I'm not really feeling it right now. But then once you actually get there and you're actually like doing the work, and you start lifting a little bit, it's like, man, this feels real good. You start to see the results. And then that's what entrepreneurship is. It's just like a roller coaster of wanting to do it, not wanting to do it, loving it, not loving it. But that speaks to that process, Yeah.
And that's what it is about being an entrepreneur. It's up and down, man, all the time. Like, it's up and down. Like, it's just like a roller coaster of emotions. 1 minute you're sad, 1 minute you're happy, next minute you're trying to figure out why you even started. And, it's all over the place, man.
And bro, you're already in a very volatile market, or industry, I should say, like in real estate. That already has a lot of ups and downs in it as well. So to be a full-time entrepreneur in that, I don't, if you ever say like, yo, I'm about to go give me a 9 to 5, I had to get you drug tested or something, like, because you preach entrepreneurship a little too hard for me to think that you'll ever go back to like a traditional job.
You know what? I was talking to my wife. I was talking to Ashley, what was it, a couple weeks ago. And I was like, man, I don't think I can ever go back willingly. Like, it will have to be some circumstances out of my control for me to go back. But me to go back, I don't thrive well under, the 9 to 5 umbrella. I'll just say that. So,
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I just want to, because I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs feel the exact same way. It's like that love-hate relationship, but it's just like that love might be 51%, the hate 49%. And as long as you keep that hate above it, I mean, the love above it, it keeps you in there. And because I was like, well, you already kind of like semi-quit photography for the most part. You know,
but here's the thing: that was a trade that I learned, from you and stuff. That I would never be able to get that up if I wanted to, because it pays off in everything else that I do. Oh, as a business, yeah. As a business,
yeah. Yeah, I'm almost right behind you. We'll see how this wedding is that we shoot in a couple of weeks.
Oh man, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, but as we get ready to kind of wrap this episode up, I would love to hear the viewers and listeners' thoughts on that love-hate relationship with entrepreneurship. I was like, because I know me and you aren't the only ones who feel this way. So
yeah.
For the listeners or viewers, like, even send us a message or leave a comment like, yeah, I got a 70-30% love-hate relationship with entrepreneurship. Or are there times that you feel like you want to get off of the path of entrepreneurship, or what keeps you on the path? Like, any feedback, we're really interested to get some feedback from you guys and get your thoughts on this topic.
And that's another episode of the Whoopin' the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux. Whatever you guys are listening on, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.